And as I said, we will first share a short address from our president, Roberto Gonzalez. I hope you can see the screen.
Good morning, everyone. I just producing this short video to give you the welcoming to this seminar, in which our Scholar Under Threat Committee is again putting a lot of energy from our organization. ISPP has been always very engaged in initiatives that are fostering the connection among our scholars who have been experiencing problems in different contexts for different reasons in different regions of the world. I'm so happy to hear that Maja told me that 34 people signed up to be part of this important seminar. For ISPP, as I was telling you, it's a very important initiative that was established years ago by Eva Green, which was aimed to help colleagues around the world who've been facing problems for different reasons, as I said. And this opportunity to engage and connect with members of ISPP and other fellows who are really interested in collaborating and helping others in terms of maintaining their own academic careers, helping to develop new projects, new research ideas, reviewing articles, the usual work we do in academia. The Scholar Under Threat and the tuning program particularly is one of the central initiatives that are really interested in fostering ISPP. That's why this seminar is so relevant, and that's why we include a roundtable in our ISPP meeting in Canada and in many other previous meetings, because this is the way we create the space, we provide the voice for people who are really experiencing problems, struggles when developing their academic careers. I'm very welcome you all. I wish I could be there, but I'm currently traveling from the UK, going back to Santiago in Chile, where I'm based. So that's why I decided to give you this very short introduction and welcoming to this seminar. I do hope you will be engaging and interacting with others, and I wish the best in terms of connecting with people. Please, ISPP is here to help you, to give you voice, and to support your initiatives. And we have a large group of members, more than 800 people, really interested and motivated. And I would like to thank all the members of ISPP who will be connected to this seminar, speaking about our tuning program and other initiatives that really are high important for us in our agenda. I wish you the best in the seminar and hope to see you around in our meetings or next meeting we organize in seminar like this. Thank you and bye-bye.
Thank you so much to Roberto. It would be wonderful to hear now from the people who actually started the committee to tell us a little bit about the history and the timeline of the work.
Hi, everyone. I'll start, if that's okay. Thank you so much for being here with us. It's really nice to know that people are interested in how this committee has been working and what we're hoping to do in the future. So my name is Yasemin Acar. I am currently at the University of Dundee, but when this committee began, I was still based in Istanbul at Özyeğin University. And along with a few of my colleagues that are actually here today, I see Elif and Ahmet, and I'm sure there are others who were kind of present when we were trying to figure out ways to gain support for not just ourselves, but our colleagues in Turkey a few years ago. So I'm going to just quickly tell you a bit about how we sort of came to ISPP as a resource for scholars under threat, and then and then I'll pass to Eva, who sort of officially started us off. It was back in 2016 that the Academics for Peace held a press conference and read their statement, "We will not be a party to this crime." And this statement included a couple thousand signatures from academics across the world, and many of our colleagues in Turkey who were particularly interested in voicing our concerns about the re-instigated sort of oppression that was going on in Kurdish cities after the peace process between the Turkish state and Kurdish guerrillas sort of fell apart in 2015. At this time, for many of us, there was this sort of sense of what can we do, and people felt a bit unsure what they had the power to do, but we thought maybe as academics we can use our identities as academics to bring some attention to this issue. And one of the sort of easiest ways, or maybe the simplest ways that we can do that, is through a petition. And lo and behold, this thing that we thought was this very minor sort of collective action turned into something much larger, because just a couple of days after the press conference to read the statement, Erdogan speaks out, then Prime Minister Erdogan speaks publicly about the academics who've signed this. And of course, as soon as he makes a statement about it, you find that there are dismissals that begin, there are prosecutions, and just a series of events showing this sort of very quick response to dissenting voices. It was a few months later that the first few people were arrested. This was after the second press statement in March. So Esra Mungan, Meral Jamcı, Muzaffer Kaya, Kıvanç Arsoy were arrested at that time. And it was around this time also that we had ISPP members reaching out from Turkey to organizations. So we were kind of talking to each other and thinking, what can we do, and how can we find some support, especially for those who were being more directly prosecuted, because there was an uneven distribution in terms of who was being affected at that time. So we started to reach out to our own sort of scientific organizations. This included ISPP. It also included EASP, the European Association for Social Psychology, and it included SPICI, the Society for something and Social Issues. In the moment I forgot. I love the organization. I've just suddenly blanked. But anyway, so we reached out to these three organizations, and around June of 2016, ISPP members started to sort of informally twin people in Turkey with others outside of Turkey. And it was at that time that it was more focused, the twinning program at that time was much more focused on just making sure that we had, for those of us who were in Turkey, had someone to check in with regularly outside. So that if for some reason something happens, maybe you're arrested, maybe you stop responding to emails or what have you, there's someone external who can sort of sound the alarm, so to speak, within the organization and say, okay, well, we need to bring awareness to this either through letter writing or something else. So at the time, it was a pretty basic sort of check-in once a week, make sure there are contacts outside of the country that you can be in touch with. Going into July is when things really took a turn. So it was in July 2016 that there was an attempted coup in Turkey. Actually, this happened during the ISPP conference in Warsaw. So many of us were in Warsaw when this was going on. I remember being with Ahmet in that moment too. So I was with him when I got the news. And in that time, what we saw immediately after the attempted coup was that the government had extended state of emergency powers, and they used those powers to then publish decree laws that resulted in mass dismissals of civil servants, including academics and academics for peace. it was in November that we saw that ISPP sort of continued efforts to do twinning, and now the twinning started to turn to something like, can we find people posts abroad? Is this now we're sort of going from checking in with people regularly to, is there a way to get people who want to leave out? Shortly after this, you have the SUT roundtable at ISPP in Edinburgh as sort of the first roundtable event for SUT. And around this time also, you find that we had a sort of workshop in Istanbul. We applied for a small grant through ISPP to have a meeting together in Istanbul to sort of talk about what kinds of things can we do to have a stronger sort of solidarity network. What is it that we can do to sort of make sure that we have something that's not just us checking in with somebody once a week, but something a bit more systematic? What is it that we can start proposing here? And that was, again, when a number of people from who were working in Turkey at the time, and also people from ISPP who were working abroad, came to Istanbul. We had a meeting, and we had a chance to sort of talk about all of this. And I think this is where I can say we had this first sort of sense of, well, maybe something more concrete, like a committee, was discussed. I will, at this point, maybe pass to Eva to see if she can sort of continue with like the beginnings of the actual committee itself.
Thanks a lot, Yasemin. So yeah, I'm also very happy to be here today, and thanks a lot for the invitation. It's been a while since I've been involved with ISPP issues. I was until 2019, so maybe a little bit from my background. I'm a social psychologist located in Lausanne, and I started my ISPP career in the governing of ISPP, first as a governing council member, then as a vice president for publications, and then president. So I was involved for 10 years. So I was happy to retire for a while, but really happy to be back today to discuss this, because it was one of the activities I really felt very strong towards, and I was quite happy that ISPP could take some steps into this direction and formalize some activities during time I was involved, and there were many of us who were involved. So even though Roberto mentioned my name, I'm surely not the only one who should be mentioned. So maybe I'll go back a little bit regarding the formalization of the committee. As Yasemin said, all of this started with the situation in Turkey, and there were lots of activities that were put in place. You mentioned the twinning, but there was also the observation of trials. There were two delegations who visited Istanbul in January 2018 and January 2019, or February 2019. And we also started seeking for funding and donations to support scholars at risk, and at that time it was mainly scholars from Turkey. So what happened is that once there were more and more involvement, we realized in the governing council that we should structuralize the activities, and the first formal activity was the launching of the annual roundtable at the conference, and I think that has been going on ever since. And there's a certain amount of interest in the society for this. And then with the twinning, with the roundtable, and with the launching of the kind of donation drive, it was, all this happened like partially when John Jost was president, and then Kate Reynolds, and then at the end of Kate Reynolds' presidency, when I took over, I thought, let's formalize this. And then we decided to create the committee, and Kate Reynolds, since she had been working on it during her presidency, she took over the first presidency of the society, the idea being that we try and, first of all, look at different ways of reaching out to other societies, and then formalize the donation drive, and then just kind of be a little bit more systematic in what the kind of activities we can do. And what we were doing when we were preparing, we were looking at, actually, I went back to some of the documentations we created at the time and what we had actually done. So we decided to have the annual roundtable. That is one activity. And then we reached out to different societies. At the time, I was discussing a lot with Kai Sassenberg, who was the president of the European Association of Social Psychology. And then I reached out to also to SPC and to SPSP and to some other societies. And they were also involved, but they were maybe less kind of structured. They were not creating a specific structure for their involvement, but they were nevertheless quite interested in sharing, like posting our announcements. Quite quickly, it appeared that it would be also important that we don't restrict our actions to the situation in Turkey, and we decided, given the situation in Hungary, we decided to write up some statements, and that's something we will discuss in a moment. When do we write out statements and when we don't? We wrote statements regarding the banning of gender studies in Hungarian universities. That we did in 2018, and then we also wrote another statement to the academic autonomy it was again in Hungary, for the Hungarian Academy of Sciences. And then we also wrote another statement, and I think there's been many statements since, but at this time we wrote a statement. This was this time supporting, we didn't write it to condemn, but to support Palestinian universities where their academic staff were forced to leave Palestine because they were not getting permits. So this was something we set up, and there was always a procedure when we could write a statement and when we couldn't. That was something that was always discussed, often in the governing council meetings, but often since we had to make the decisions during the year, we voted these in the executive council. That meant among the vice presidents and the chief editors of the journals. That these are the people who form the executive council of ISPP. So there were the advocacy, the donation drives, and then there was the twinning. And then we became at one point, and that's why I'm not sure what the situation is currently, we became members of Scholars at Risk, and that was something that was also a decision to explicitly kind of showcase the interest of ISPP in taking part in Scholars at Risk activities. And at that point, that was, at least I did that twice. I had meetings with Scholars at Risk New York, and they gave us some advice on how to just go about with different activities. And I found that personally very helpful, since I had not done this kind of activities previously in my career. So I think that was all the activities, what we did until 2019. And then at that point, I passed the chair of the SUT committee to Anna, and I'll give the floor to you now.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so I'll continue from here as I took over the position of chair of the Scholars Under Threat Committee from Eva. And I think, okay, so I'm, as it was mentioned, I'm from Hungary. I work at Eötvös Loránd University in Budapest, and I think it's kind of, it's a coincidence really, but I think it has something to do with some of the changes that took place in the Scholars Under Threat Committee. Hungary is often referred to nowadays as a hybrid regime, so part democratic, or like has this illusion of democracy, whereas we have a lot of restrictions in, well, it's not a functional democracy anymore. according to Freedom House or other. So I had some personal experiences with some concerns regarding academic freedom, but obviously we didn't have that kind of situation, direct persecution of academics as in Turkey. And also what happened, I think, at that time, because that was 3 years after the events of Turkey started, and the idea that ISPP need to step up and show some direct help and solidarity and political advocacy and so on. Basically, the task at that point was, how can we transform this kind of immediate relief that the organization offered into something sustainable and into maybe a broader range of issues concerning academic freedom and persecution of academics. And clearly, this is not a competition of victimhood of various issues, but there needs to be some guidelines about what is defined as a threat to academic freedom, what and how. And so we had a lot of debates about who are we speaking up for? And one of the main decisions was that it will be our members, or it will be somehow associated with our members, because we are aware of the fact that there are a lot of problems in the world, way beyond the problems I am facing in Hungary. So nobody is doubting the fact that there could be much more severe, even life-threatening situations for academics. However, they are either not political psychologists, or they are not our members, somehow we are not affiliated with them. But of course, that definition is already problematic, as we had seen in connection with the war in Ukraine, that there is an association of Ukrainian political psychologists with a membership of 200 people, none of whom are the members of the International Society of Political Psychology. So all of these issues raised, just, opened up a new set of questions that we needed to deal with. But I think our primary task was, and I think this is something that we all experience in our everyday solidarity action, that if there is a crisis, if there is a disaster, then everybody's ready to help and offer a lot and sacrifice. But to turn it into something sustainable, that's an extremely challenging and extremely frustrating task, I need to say. So this is what we were working on with the committee at the time, many of the members of which are here today, how we can turn it into something sustainable in terms of getting continuous funding for our projects, reaching people that we think would be important to reach, mobilizing the members of the association who could show, who have the resources, connections to do things. So the main challenge was to make these connections. And one idea was, which had a little to do with what I had been experiencing as a scholar from Hungary, which is not exactly the best represented country in academia, is that if we are an academic association, one way of sustainable, well, not just help, but commitment to some kind of improvement is to transform the twinning scheme from advocacy into more of a scholarly collaboration, as many people from countries where there is academic freedom is also threatened face other challenges to conducting research. And we thought this would be kind of two goals at once, that and also make it more sustainable and maybe have some further additional advantages. If you create twins that are really on a scholarly basis, obviously there would be a direct possibility to step up as political advocates of our colleagues, which is always anyway what we do when this happens, that we would be first to step up for our immediate collaborators and people we know. So the main challenge was to create this, and I think we did a good job in terms of first finding the partners who were willing to become the twins, and only when we saw that there was enough interest and we had something to offer to scholars at risk, we started recruiting scholars at risk. I can't say, I don't know what success is or lack of success, I don't know how to define that, but I think there were some valuable collaborations growing out of that, but not in high numbers. So mostly I think it was, it had an important symbolic outcome that we created this opportunity. We were in contact not just with scholars at risk at this point, but I wanted to say it really quickly. We became associated with another organization, maybe Yasemin knows. Anyway, so we tried to get advice from more professional organizations where this is their main activity. And basically they also said, like, there's not much more you can do as an academic organization, just be active and always and maintain the message. Okay. Not Kara, but the other one, Kara as well. Anyway, I don't think I want to say a lot more than that, but basically that was the challenge at the time when I left and when Yasemin took over the position of chair again, when I left the governing council. Thank you.
I don't remember if it was IIE or SAR or one of those.
IIE, I think. IIE.
Yeah, maybe that one. Yeah, because we at that time were forging connections with all of these networks.
And I almost got stuck in Berlin when the COVID started, and I was at their meeting. I definitely remember that.
Yeah, that's great.
Before the borders were closed.
Yeah. Is that okay, Maja, in terms of our timeline?
Yes, perfect. And it is a wonderful segue into actually hearing from the two twins who will tell a little bit about indeed how this whole advocacy turned into actually more academic support that the SUT tries to provide. And I will turn to Mete and Orhan, whoever wants to start first, to tell us a little bit about their experience and what they took out of the whole twinning opportunity.
I don't mind. Orhan can start if you want.
Okay, I can start. First of all, thank you for inviting me to these events. Here, I will talk about my own experience within the context of the twinning scheme. I'm Orhan Kaya, an academic who was dismissed from academia in Turkey due to my beliefs. In 2016, I also think the peace declaration that was announced during that time. I was working as a research assistant at a small university in Turkey and pursuing my PhD studies. I faced many disadvantages in various aspects, and it's a very long story, but I want to explain short. The twinning scheme proposal emerged during that period. If I remember correctly, I think 52 individuals were matched with one academic each from abroad. I was paired with Dr. Fergus Neville. At first, I didn't know how we would proceed. However, later on, Fergus started to send me emails almost every week, providing suggestions for my PhD. He also offered many recommendations regarding my legal cases and investigation process. During this time, I was subjected to a total of 6 investigations, and the pressure were escalating. Based on Fergus' suggestion, a letter was prepared to be sent to the university administration and the members of the investigation committee. The letter had the theme Orhan Kaya should not be punished. It also emphasized that seeking peace and making effort towards it should not be considered a crime. Many academics sent this prepared letter to the committee and university administration during that time, and the psychology department of the head of department of psychology, it was impact our department and university, as I know. Although this letter did not prevent my punishment, I believe it bought me some time and delayed the imposition of the penalty. Additionally, it provided me with incredible moral and motivation. I particularly remember that after this letter process, I started working more cohesively on my PhD. Until the completion of my PhD, I consistently received significant academic support from Fergus. During this period, I also got to know Yasemin and many other friends who were part of the twinning scheme. After graduation, with the support of Fergus and Yasemin, I began searching for funding for postdoctoral position. I applied SRF, Kara, and SAR. All of them rejected me at first. During this application process, Fergus and Yasemin put incredible effort into writing reference letters and organizing my application documents. Yasemin translated all of my documents. Fergus was always available for communication and provided constant guidance during the application periods. My applications were rejected multiple times. Each time Fergus and Yasemin offered new suggestions and they encouraged me to a new process. Although our efforts didn't get a result during these periods, the attitude of these friends gave me hope. They helped me stay resilient during a time when I was unemployment, being judged, and facing various difficulties. Later on, this support turned into collaboration. We prepared some research. Now we have an ongoing project with Fergus and Yasemin. It's intergenerational collective action study. Subsequently, based on the recommendation of this network, I contacted SAR again, and SAR decided to support me. In line with this, I received a postdoctoral acceptance at Sapienza University of Rome. I came to Italy in 2021, and I am still continuing my work here during this year. Also, Fergus and Yasemin and other friends continue to support me and guide me in many aspects. In conclusion, thanks to this program, I not only gained a valuable network, but also entered a supportive community where I can seek assistance in any matter, especially in the early days when everyone around us tried to avoid us and not be seen with us, knowing that someone was standing with us and making efforts for us provides huge moral. Finally, I experienced all these during my PhD period. Therefore, I missed the opportunity to receive a proper academic education because I was in a nationalist and small city where it was impossible to focus on classes or academic work. Hence, I felt that I was lacking in academic method and knowledge. Now, in the process of addressing these shortcomings and gaining new methods and academic perspective, I continue to receive significant support. This program, Fergus and Yasemin, they continue to guide me in every aspect. Thank you.
So I can take over from here, I guess. Hi everyone, my name is Mete. I'm a postdoctoral researcher at the Friedrich Schiller University Jena in Germany. But when I engaged with the ISPP SUT, I was based in Turkey, like everyone here almost. So, well, actually at the beginning, I was quite shy to apply for this twinning program for a while. And I remember that I didn't apply the twinning program in the first month when they opened the call. And a couple of months later, I realized they are still looking for a mentee for applicants from Turkey. And then I personally contacted with Yasemin And I asked her, Yasemin, do you think I'm allowed to apply for this program? Because, you know, ethically, morally, I am allowed to apply because I am not that much under risk. Do you think I'm under risk? And Yasemin was like, you are working on collective action and Kurdish identity in Turkey. What do you think? It's funny, but it was crazy times. It's still crazy times. Because I remember the people, the researchers spent their time in trials. They were dismissed, some of them in jail. Most of them had to deal with legal stuff. So they were under a direct political threat. And my situation was quite different. I had a problems with my institution, but I am not that the least of the government. And even I remember the Orhan's name in a pro-government newspaper in a list of terrorist academics. So it was a quite different situation for me. So in such environment, of course, you feel like, what if I create a competition for those who really need these, or what if I steal the rights, those who are really under direct political threats? So I think my mission is here and encourage people who have some similar kind of hesitation. So I keep it brief, so you can ask your question me directly, I hope. But then with the twinning program, I start to understand, like, it's not a zero-sum game. It's not a competition of victimhood, or it's not a competition for who is better under threat researcher. None of us should be in that position. None of us shouldn't experience this. Anyway, with the emotional support, that encouragement of Yasemin, Anna, Ahmet, and many others, and I convinced that I can apply for this. And I applied the twinning program at 2020, I guess, during my PhD. In my application, even I remember I said that I am a final year PhD student, and I finished my PhD December 2021. So PhD and Turkey is not a good combination. So I was super lucky because I paired with John Drury, which like one of my academic superstar. He was, I don't know if he's here, but he was super supportive. He's still very supportive. We are still working on our project, and the process in general was very instructive for me in many senses, because we start to discuss the potential research project in line with our shared interest. We start to discuss also beyond the academic collaboration, what I need as a PhD student under threat. So in such program, in such process to support scholars under threat, you started to realize that need of under threat researchers are way complicated, way heterogeneous, and not limited with the material resources. Of course, we need money. Everyone needs money for research, but as a PhD researchers who work under repression, your imagination, your perception on academia and research quite biased, limited, and depressive, and which with such supportive and empowering relationship between like supervisor or mentor and early career researcher, whereby you can find a place for you in academy, you can fit in somewhere in academy, you can start to imagine beyond the social condition, political condition you live in, you work, and you can convince yourself that another world, another academy, another research environment is possible. And many times I was really at the edge of leaving academy during my PhD, and this support mechanism, I stay in the academy, I keep myself on track. But beyond these emotional aspects, of course, the material research resources are important, and material resources not only limited with the money. For instance, one of my and many under threat early career researchers' problem in Turkey was that we cannot get ethical approval for our research, because if you are stigmatized one time, they, like the government, your institution, the people start to work against you and never let you conduct a critical research. I mean, critical research doesn't mean a real critical research. Any research that government find problematic, find dangerous, is a critical research, is a political research for them. And with this kind of collaboration and network with the twinning program, we had a chance to easily solve this problem. So we can get IRBs and ethical approval from our colleagues university, but so it was a big step for us because now we have a approval to conduct this research. Also, this kind of collaboration gives us a chance to access many basic academic needs that I think most of the researchers all around the world never think about, the lack of these basic needs, like database access, online data collection tools, analysis softwares. These are very basic stuff, and people never think about what if some researchers under threat cannot access these kind of resources. And when you access with that kind of collaboration, these needs, it change a lot. So we start to discuss with John and decide to conduct research on confrontation of collective action in democratic and anti-democratic regimes. And for a while, we think to apply multiple research grants for that, which is also important experience because you start to learn how you can write a grant proposal, which part should highlight it, how you understand which grant is suitable for your research aim and your position. But again, I was lucky, and ISPP Scholars Under Threat Committee decided to provide a very small research grant to people who want to conduct research in this training program. And this little money changed a lot, changed many things for us because, now we can collect data from Kurdish participants who live in Turkey, Scottish participants who live in the UK, which I couldn't imagine when I was in Turkey because it was almost impossible because of the material resources, because of the political chances and so on. So now we are working on this paper and other academic projects. So in the end, we will produce, I think, pretty cool articles, materials, but also I learned a lot of things beyond that, research related or general about the academy, about the people, culture, and solidarity. And I believe I transformed from a researcher who needs a support to a researcher who can provide the support for researchers still under threat. And I know, like, thanks to John, thanks to SUT, I know many ways to support and show my solidarity with the people. That's why I'm waiting your question, I think, but after Thomas talks, right? Thank you very much.
Thank you so much to both Orhan and Kaya for sharing their wonderful journeys as well with the SUT, at least partially wonderful with the SUT. We're going to hear a little bit about how to set up a remote affiliation, something that Thomas is managed to work out with the university.
All right, can you see the presentation?
Yes.
Yes, okay. I decided to provide a slideshow, and I'm happy to share it with anybody interested because it contains some sample bureaucratic wording that worked at my university to set up a remote departmental affiliation. So people that want to follow along can do that. Basically, a remote affiliation allows scholars under threat whose passports have been revoked and who have been fired from their academic positions to submit manuscripts for publication, apply for research funding, and use the remote university's online resources, for example, email, library access, JSTOR, software licenses, and so on. And I'm providing the history of the UConn's School of Public Policy. We recently became a School of Public Policy. Back then, we were the Department of Public Policy. And how we set up the remote affiliation program so that you can follow along. In November 2018, I suggested providing a remote affiliation during a faculty meeting at what was then the Department of Public Policy at the University of Connecticut and a unanimous vote was taken to look into the possibility. So the departmental resistance was not very big. It was easy to overcome. And then in February 2019, we held a speaker series event on Scholars at Risk with Rose Anderson, the Director for Protection Services at the Scholars at Risk Network, SR, and the UConn SAR liaison, Associate Professor Catherine Liebel, and Psychology Professor Felicia Prato, and a current SAR scholar at UConn. Just to provide information and background information to my department on Scholars at Risk. During that meeting, DPP Professor Amy Donahue, who had served as Vice Provost for Academic Operations at UConn, suggested that establishing the remote affiliation may be as easy as issuing a net ID, which is our UConn ID number, and a UConn email address to a gratis affiliate. And the procedure would be the same as if they were an unpaid affiliate in residence, except that it would only be online. SAR subsequently sent several anonymous candidate descriptions from which we chose the closest fitting during a departmental faculty meeting in 2019. And in April of the same year, Amy Donahue and Associate Professor Catherine Liebel spoke with UConn's general counsels. And this is probably something that you will encounter, resistance from the bureaucracy. The two questions that were raised are, how are scholars at risk vetted? And what would happen if they did anything harmful to the department or the university? That was a great concern. And in response to the first question, SAR provided information on how the vetting is conducted and that they would mediate should any conflicts arise. The General Counsel approved the remote affiliation. And in May, a gratis offer letter was issued by the department head, Professor Mohammed Al-Qadri. The letter was signed and returned by the affiliate, and the net ID and UConn email address were issued. Our remote affiliate, Ülkü Doğanay, who has given permission to use her name in this presentation, has been meeting regularly with me via Skype and has participated remotely in departmental or school faculty meetings and made use of UConn's online resources for research and publishing. And I'm providing the offer letter so that you can see what bureaucratic wording works. I'm just quoting from the letter, and I can make the letter available to you as well if you want to use it at your institution. You're being given this gratis appointment, which will help in advancing your own research and learning, as well as engaging with the UConn community. We anticipate that you will begin on such and such a date and work through such and such a date. It was several times renewed. Please be aware that there may be circumstances that could necessitate ending your authorization earlier. We have agreed that your service will be on a gratis basis with no remuneration expected. The department will make the arrangements for an email account, and so on. By accepting this appointment, I agree to abide by all university policies, including but not limited to the university's code of conduct. Then Ülkü also received a faculty website on which she introduced herself. In that background information she wrote, in February 2017, she was purged with an emergency degree of law and banned from public service in Turkey for signing the Academics for Peace petition. And now I have a very positive update. Ülkü was acquitted of all charges by a Turkish court and subsequently received her passport back. A few days ago, an administrative court in Turkey even decided to reinstate her. Meanwhile, she has received an Einstein Fellowship to conduct research for 2 years at the Humboldt University in Berlin, Germany. She ended her remote affiliation with the University of Connecticut School of Public Policy on May 23rd, 2023. Of course, we wish her the best of success in all her future endeavors and are very excited about this turn of events. Now, an excerpt from a letter that Ülkü wrote and gave me permission to cite. After my remote affiliation started, I published an article in an international journal, and I taught an online course at Free University of Berlin. My access to the UConn library and software made my job much easier. The Department of Public Policy provided also support during the proofreading phase of the article I wrote. In sum, there were many practical benefits provided by this position. Being a part of UConn, even remotely, also provided important moral support. I would like to thank Scholars at Risk and the Department of Public Policy for making this possible for me. So in summary, setting up remote affiliations is surprisingly easy. The procedure for in-residence gratis affiliations can be used. If there is pushback from the university leadership, simply refer to UConn's example and contact me at, here's my email, thomas.craemer, C-R-A-E-M-E-R, at uconn.edu. And with that, I say thank you very much, and I'll stop the share. Okay.
Thank you so much, Thomas, as well. This was really, really informative. I think for us who can stay for a couple of minutes, there's at least one question here in the Q&A. And perhaps there will be some more now. So the question is, scholars at risk have double difficulties and more discrimination even from democratic countries. They have more difficulty to collect the data, more difficulty to support their projects, more risk, and then when applying, they have less publication in comparison to others. So how can we start and what can we do for them? I think that's one question I think we can all try to fit in.
Well, I might probably chime in and say that with a remote affiliation, scholars at risk actually do have the opportunity to apply for, to submit articles for publication and to apply for grants and to participate in academic life. So although that is not a paid position, it has a lot of material benefits that allow scholars at risk to be more competitive than they otherwise would be. Of course, I see the limitation you mentioned is, of course, one that is difficult to overcome altogether, but these are small ways of helping, I think.
Can I respond? Yeah, I really, yeah, I can see the point, and I realize that of course the where one has had one's training has a great impact on how one can conduct a career. For example, in Europe, one might be disadvantaged when applying because the publication record is not the same as what might be accepted or expected in some countries. But that's why I think these kind of these twinning or then kind of mentoring programs, that they would be essential. And then when we have, for example, the ISPP twinning, or if one hosts scholars at risk, I would assume that the host, depending of course on the field, would collaborate with the scholar, and that this would kind of lead to, there'll be more know-how and more kind of integration into a research project that would allow publications and allow getting involved in the research, and that will then help. But of course, if one is by themselves as a scholar at risk, I can see that not necessarily, even though one would have the material support, one might not be able to advance one's career in a way that one could be applying for jobs in Europe or in the US. That's one point of view.
May I add in something? Oh, sorry, Elif, go on, please.
Ahmet, you were the first, please.
Yeah.
Just go.
Sorry, but what you did is polite. I'm not polite. Sorry for that. The important things that even when you look at all the history, the people hear and talk, and we gather together now and listening to all this sturdy people, joining and engaging. The most important part for scholar at risk that is being connected to one another. Because I remember how the start, Yasemin a little bit mentioned earlier, but we not the ISPP because that we proud member of it, very young fellow, and didn't hurt. And then we knock again, we started to punch the door, then it started something started because we know each other, we connected each other, we know the people, we communicate the people. So that's very important if someone living in the global south, that you can't imagine there are a number of different layers in heterogeneity or variety of the risk that assess, to be honest. Even Mete a little bit mentioned whether or not I am really under the threat because someone is kicked their out of the university or punch or get prosecuted or get in the jail. So the comparison level is very uneven, very difficult. So even the scholar under the threat couldn't really realize that how threat is really threat for them. So there are so different layer for that. That's where the community come in. So the community, international community, which is quite important. That's how and why we are talking in here. So if we keep engaging and being part of that, it's not necessarily we can provide or something. It's not hierarchical in a sense that, but it's a mutual aids that we learn each other, we know from each other. Now that thanks to all this experience, now that I'm reading Mete's article, project and everything, and also we keep going to communicate to all our members and societies. Then therefore if something's happen or people are under threat, scholar at threat, that feel the empowerment to communicate to this structure and to us. Therefore I think one of the most important things that we are not just competition in the global north, in our university already asking the all liberal and progressive idea to conduct the research. We are not all of that with similar research, even the idea somewhere else in the global south that maybe is a quite risk. Maybe it's a kind of, you need the courage to able to carry on. It's not the privilege for them. Then therefore, we need to share those privilege to empower the people. I think the most important things that what we can do, that we empowering the people. Once we're empowering the people, the communication and connection, the research and project, the resource, everything's just follow and can follow, but the important things, we need to engage, we need the part of it. We couldn't really underestimate the power of ourselves to coming together, what we can do. So I don't know whether or not that in Montreal, this video is shown, but if it is, that I also would like to express the audience there, because I won't be able to come in. I am living in a poor country, Turkey at the moment. So the important things that you can't imagine that when you engage in an involvement that to how much power you can put in this cause. That's one of the things that easy answer for me. What can I do? What we can do for scholar under threat? That is what we can do, is to connect with them, engage with them, and being together. I think that's the most important things for me. So thank you very much. I leave it to Elif.
Thank you, Ahmet. What I'm going to say is not that much different from yours, but I think it's important to put forward the collective initiatives for that, first of all, as we are affiliated with universities and also the academic organizations like ISPP, like ASP, ECPR, etc., SPC. I believe that the the structural inequalities that Ahmet is mentioning, not only the scholars at risk who are living under the political oppression, but also the available differences between the North and South, between the weird countries and the non-weird countries, are quite visible. And as part of an organization of a political psychology, we have to be political. The organizations has to be political. It is important to solve this issue of structural inequalities by ignoring the politics, or by saying that being politic is like being an activist. So we have to be political, and in a world in which, Anna said it's very, very nice, in which the illusion of democracy is being prevalent day by day, we have to be political, and we have to force the organizations that we are part of to act more. So when Eva was the president of ISPP was an organization of political psychology, really an organization of political psychology who had the courage to stand up against the violations of academic freedom. If it is not doing the same thing now, I think there should be something that we have to react collectively. So we have to consider that not only the universities that we are part of, I mean, Thomas just mentioned some of the difficulties in terms of the university bureaucracies, not the universities that we are part of, but the international organizations of academy should also react. And if they not, I think that we should put some collective effort to make them more political, especially considering the political psychology organizations. Yeah, that is my contribution.
I wanted to see if perhaps there are any other, just invite whether participants, if there are any other questions they'd like to raise. I don't see the things at the moment being discussed. That I want to thank everyone for participating today.